Okay, welcome again, everyone, to our webinar this afternoon. We're going to be talking about Computer Science Education Week, which is coming up pretty quickly here, and introducing you to some resources that you can use to plan instruction for your students. So let's kind of go through here what we will be talking about this afternoon. First, I do have some wonderful, incredible colleagues joining me here today, and I'll introduce them in just a second. But we are going to have a discussion with them around the impacts that computer science has on education across curricular areas. So it's not just about, those specials classes or just the students who take explicit computer science courses, but really what can we do to equip all of our students with the requisite skills for future readiness. So, and again, because this is an interactive forum, we do encourage you to ask questions, to participate, to add your insights, to share your ideas. And before you leave here today, you will be equipped with that CSTA alignment guide so that you can find resources from LEGO Education to use with your students to celebrate that Computer Science Education Week. So I am very excited to introduce you to my friends and colleagues. And I'll have them introduce themselves as well. First, by the way, I'm Emily Hayes. I'm the head of Educator Success here with LEGO Education. I also come from a background of teaching, close to 20 years, really championing hands-on project-based learning. And with me today, we have Dr. Leanna Prater, Grant Smith, and Joshua Johnson. And I will let each of them tell you a little bit about themselves, and we'll start with Leanna. So Leanna, please take it away.
Sure. So I'm Leanna Prater. I am our professional learning manager here at LEGO Education. Really excited to be able to talk about one of the topics that I'm just personally passionate about, which is computer science education, and of course, gearing up for a great celebration for CSED Week. And with that, I'll pass it off to Josh.
Thanks, Leanna. Welcome, everybody. I will echo the sentiments that has been shared so far. So excited to share these resources with you and start thinking ahead to celebrating Computer Science Education Week. My name is Joshua Johnson, and I am a curriculum specialist here at LEGO Education. Prior to joining LEGO, I have experience as a science teacher in the middle school level, as well as an instructional coach for both science and computer science in various schools around the country. So excited to be here and have this discussion tonight, and I will pass the mic to Grant.
Thanks, Joshua. I'm excited to be here too. CS Education Week is so fun, and it's a fun time to celebrate all the programs that are out there or to launch a program. I am similar to Joshua. I've taught middle school and elementary coding and did some CS for All implementations. I've also written a book, and I'm one of the authors of the Csta K-12 Computer Science Standards.
So again, I'm excited to have just this breadth of expertise here joining us today. I kept hearing folks talk about celebrating CSED Week and the fun and excitement of it, but let's start off by talking about what is the importance of CSED Week?
I'll jump in, Emily, first, if you want me to.
Please.
For me, I think CSED Week is really a time to highlight the importance of computer science, and it might be new to some people. It might be new to some teachers, and it kind of is a way that maybe you can dip your toe in the water if you've never tried, bringing computer science into your classroom or engaging in lessons. And if you are somebody who maybe is using solutions in your classroom, like things from LEGO Education, or you're doing things in your classroom that involve computer science or programming, it's a great time to try something new, right? Like maybe explore something that you haven't tried before with your students. So I think it provides a nice little opportunity for educators.
Just to add
thank
to
you,
what,
Leanna.
Yep. Thanks, Emily. I was going to say, just to add to what Leanna was saying, I think of Computer Science Education Week as a wonderful way to do a few different things. One is advocate for computer science education in your classroom, in your district, and across the country. Another is to celebrate the successes that are already happening. So if you have amazing things happening in your classroom, to share those with the world on social media, with other classmates, with other peers in your school district. And also for exposure, if students have never been introduced to computer science before, it's a great jumping off point to try something or open that door or spark some new learning. So I think of it oftentimes as celebrating, advocating, and exposure.
I also think the timing is kind of fun because it's towards the end of the first semester. So it's a fun time to celebrate, if you do have a program going already, a fun time to celebrate the learning that has been happening so far. It's kind of a fun end of semester type activity too.
I love that all of you talked about this as being kind of a starting point and not an ending point, right? This isn't the one and done of computer science and how it looks in our schools and districts, but rather, I think as Joshua said, that opportunity to celebrate or to showcase what's happening, or if you're not quite at that point, then to maybe treat this as that opportunity to dip your toes into those waters. Okay, so I do want to, I'm going to pass this over to Joshua because he is our colleague who put together this amazing guide. So he's going to talk a little bit about the guide, and our friends are going to also talk about some extension ideas, some things that they might have done in a classroom that was similar. But I want to give you a quick peek at this resource. So Joshua, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take control.
That sounds great. Thanks, Emily. So what I'm going to be sharing in just a moment is a guide that we've put together so that you can start thinking ahead to Computer Science Education Week. The reason why we wanted to do the webinar now is because we have a few weeks of lead time, so you can start thinking about what your classroom could experience during Computer Science Education Week. So this guide is one way that you might interact with Computer Science Education Week. And you'll have access to this both through a link and a QR code in just a moment. But we wanted to kind of do a brief overview and peek at what's contained within this guide. So here on the front page, you can kind of see a brief overview. So the guide has an overview page that talks a little bit about the Computer Science Teachers Association standards themselves and digs into the 5 core concepts within those standards. You can see those listed here. And then we have a lesson alignment that we are suggesting or highlighting as a way that you might engage with Computer Science Education Week that aligns to each of those 5 core concepts. And each of those will have an opportunity to use the LEGO Education Spike Essential set or the LEGO Education Spike Prime set as one way you might introduce your students to, dive deeper, or expose your students to these concepts. So just scrolling through a little bit, you'll see a little bit of front matter that talks about how you might use this guide. A piece that I really want to highlight is this is just one way to connect. It's not the only way. So there's also a link to all of our LEGO education lessons here. So if you don't find one that matches exactly where you are in the curriculum, or you want to explore a different concept, you can also click this link to explore all of the LEGO education lessons and find a lesson that's perfect to use for you during Computer Science Education Week. There's also a little bit of a short explanation of those CSTA concepts that I mentioned. So computing systems introduces students to hardware and software. Networks and the internet talks about how we communicate with each other. Data and analysis is how we organize, sort, and dig into information. Algorithms and programming at different levels, you might expose or introduce students to variables or control structures or looping. And the impacts of computing digs into cultural, societal, and ethical implications of computing. So wherever you are in your computer science journey, you might choose one or all of these concepts to dig into throughout the 5 days or week of Computer Science Education Week. And you could scroll down to whichever one you want to learn more about, look at either Spike Essential or Spike Prime lessons, and then we just give a short blurb about what you could highlight during Computer Science Education Week. It has an objective, description, and if you want to learn more about those lessons, they're each linked here. So if I chose to do this lesson all about troubleshooting, debugging, and fixing problems, I could click here and learn more about the out of order lesson with Spike Prime. So we hope that this resource is really useful as a way that you can think ahead in the next 3 weeks and plan your Computer Science Education Week.
Thank you, Joshua. So I can give people, I'll post the link in chat in just a moment, but I wanted to ask our panel, so why is computer science important to our students and their learning outcomes?
And I'll go ahead and stop sharing, Emily, just so we can
Okay,
see
sure.
everyone on the panel. Yep.
Okay.
I can jump in.
Oh, thanks,
go ahead, Leanna.
Go right ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, I think I'll say what a lot of us are thinking in that, you know, there are multiple benefits, just like when you learn science, you know, physical science, it's more than just understanding the physical world around you. It's about understanding a process for discovering new information, the scientific method. But for computer science, you know, yes, you learn, you know, computer science and it is an important area in and of itself, but you also learn critical thinking and problem solving and these skills that are so necessary for the future. You know, the World Economic Forum said that 65% of jobs that current kids in elementary school will have in the future don't exist yet. And I would challenge that stat now that AI has emerged, right, and come out of its cocoon, because I'm assuming that it's more like 95% of the jobs. And really the jobs of the future are jobs where you have to solve problems that don't exist. And when you learn how to code and when you learn computer science, you're learning computational thinking, and that gives you that process and the ability to be able to solve complex problems. And we really just need to help our kids, because there is a dangerous path that they could go down, which we see kids just consuming content all the time, and we need to, you know, turn them into creators and make sure that they don't end up just being you know, stuck in front of a TV. One of my favorite movies is WALL-E, you know, like the humans in front of the TV. Like that could be the future, or we could have superhumans that use computer science to solve really amazing problems like we've never been able to before.
Yeah, great. I'm so glad you talked about problem solving, because I think it kind of equips our students with just you know, additional skills for problem solving, especially when we're thinking about, you know, problem solving with computers, which computational thinking does a great job of that. I would add to that as well, this idea of, you know, if I understand how my things work, it makes it easier for me to protect myself as well. So, you know, making sure students have an understanding of how their devices operate so that they can protect their identity, protect their finances, you know, in the future. And thinking about the stat that you quoted too about jobs in the future. Several years ago, I was at a conference, and I would love to say I remember exactly which conference it was, but that has since left my mind. But I did engage in a great conversation with some professors who, if I remember correctly, it was Bill Gates who had been at their campus, and he was speaking to their students who were in the computer science program, and he mentioned how computer science will always be used in conjunction with another discipline, right? You will never use it in isolation, which for me means that it touches everything. So the chances of whatever career pathway that you choose to go down, chances are computer science will be a part of that in some way. So just, I think, set students up for success in lots of ways, whether they go down that path as a career option or not. It's just a great set of skills to have.
And Leanne, I really love what you just said, because I think one of the most successful or interesting or creative implementations of computer science in the classroom I've seen has been so interdisciplinary. A group of teachers that I worked with in the past did this really neat project, and it's just one example of many, but they created really large scale maps, and then they had students program robots to travel from one location to another location on the map. But the social studies teacher was involved in like studying and researching map locations. The math teacher was involved measuring the circumference of the wheels and scales on the map. The computer science teacher was involved in programming. It really took this whole team, and they built out this beautiful project-based learning opportunity. And it really showed that computer science doesn't need to exist in isolation. It can be a part of all these other things you're doing in class and in school. And I think students really leaned into it and got excited because it was creative and it was fun and it applied so many different skills. So I appreciated that quote that you shared because I subscribe to that same belief.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing a real example of how this could be reflected in a classroom, but also in a interdisciplinary way. I mean, it really is kind of a fantastic medium for that. We've talked a lot about either the impact on students or perhaps the importance to students, but I know all of you have some experience working with teachers or working at a district level. How have you supported teachers as they begin to kind of delve into the world of computer science?
Yeah, I'll jump back in. So prior to joining LEGO Education, that was my role in my district, was really providing support to teachers in the STEM space. And a lot of us, myself included, came into the realm of programming and robotics without having any prior knowledge, even as a student myself. So I think for the teachers just getting started and providing some support, it was helping them understand that it was okay not to know. It was okay. Like it's okay going into this lesson, not being an expert. It's okay to learn with your students. And even some of the best teaching I think I have ever seen ever was when the teacher really didn't have the answer to provide a student. And what they ended up doing was modeling some very authentic problem solving for kids. I don't think students ever see us at times really struggle with figuring something out ourselves. And so when we take the time to verbalize that for students and problem solve along with them and ask questions, I think it shows a side of us that sometimes we feel a little vulnerable with, right? But it makes for quite wonderful moments in teaching and learning for kids.
I love that. I think that's a lot stronger than the old standby of, why do you think that is? And just tossing the problem back to the student. I think it is okay to show that cognitive struggle and that problem solving approach that we adults consistently and constantly go through. I mean, it's a part of just being human. Grant or Joshua, do you have anything to add, or even some of our folks from the audience? I know I put something in chat. I know we have some district leaders and coaches, so I would love to hear how you all have supported some teachers.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to mind right away for me is that computer science can happen at all grade levels, and oftentimes or sometimes teachers were like, that's a high school thing, or that's a even higher education thing. And I think the Computer Science Teachers Association standards help to really break down, what does that look like in kindergarten? What does it look like in 5th grade? What does it look like at a high school level? Because we can teach algorithms to kindergartners. We can talk about taking steps one at a time and how you put things in order. Make something real world. What are the steps to tying your shoes? Or what are the steps to brushing your teeth? And then introducing this more complex vocabulary as students, proceed to higher grade levels and then introduce other topics. So I think the thing I've often worked on with teachers is just kind of understanding that this can take place in all different classrooms and it will look different in different spaces. And like Leanna said, that's okay. We're just starting that journey. And as you become more comfortable with it, I think both students and teachers feel excited to launch those topics in their classrooms.
Yeah, Joshua, I'm glad you mentioned that because it made me think of something else that I did with with teachers who were just getting started with their students. And that's starting with something that's familiar with them, right? Again, you're probably doing some things that lend themselves to some data and analysis or some algorithmic thinking, right? And so it's just kind of inching towards the next phase. So one of the things I used to really I love doing with teachers, was talk with them about what are some things that you are typically doing now in your classroom in terms of projects with your kids, and what are some ways maybe that we can tweak that project just a little bit to allow them to use something like a Spike Essential set to show understanding of, you know, something in literacy maybe that you're doing. Maybe you typically have students demonstrate understanding of changes a character in a story might make throughout the story through a drawing. But how fun would that be to have them demonstrate changes that a character has made throughout a story through a Spike Essential build and programming that, right? So it just adds that layer of creativity and introduces them to some computer science a little bit, and it's a nice way to integrate it within the classroom.
Yeah, and it's not just that creativity, it's that cognitive complexity as well, because some of it might be some abstract representation. How do you demonstrate growth of a character, as you suggested, using those robots? Grant, what would you like to add?
I know we're running low on time, but just real quick, I think computer science education is so interesting because, the past decade has really been marked with teachers at the grassroots level stepping up and getting out of their comfort zone and jumping in, finding PD to do, or jumping in with the tools and figuring out how to do it. And I think to keep it moving forward, it feels like there are some admins on the call. It's time for those admins to step up and keep supporting or begin supporting all of the teachers, with everything that they need. Obviously PD is a necessity. It's always needed. I've met so very few teachers who have ever had a college or even high school course in computer science. This is really their first exposure to the subject, is teaching it. So that's vital. But then, if I can give one piece of practical advice real quick for admins or even just teachers who want to help out their colleagues, a great way to get started is by suggesting to new to CS teachers an easy to use tool to get started. And I truly think Lego Education Solutions provides that, because it's easy for the kids to get in on. There are low floors, but there is a high ceiling. There's a lot to do there, and it's very powerful, and there's lessons, and it's pretty easy to get started. So that's what I would always suggest, is finding an easy entryway. It is also very easy to get lost in the massive amounts of resources that are out there. So kind of focusing on what works is an easy way to help support those new to CS teachers.
Thank you, Grant. I don't see anything in the chat, but I didn't know if anybody else wanted to add their thoughts or reflections on especially supporting teachers in the computer science space.
I'll jump in with one other thought, Emily.
Sure.
And this goes back to my days in my school district and really thinking around awareness, right? That we had a lot of district administrators who hadn't had the opportunity even to engage in programming before either. And I remember one year we really wanted to kind of showcase why these skills were important, what students learn when they engage in creating artifacts that involve code, right? And so we actually hosted a district event and invited some students from schools to come in and lead activities for our district staff at our district office, just as an awareness of computer science. And it was wonderful. It gave students an opportunity to share what they were learning with our district administrators, but it also gave our district administrators a chance to, again, dip their toe in that space of programming. Maybe they have never programmed something before either. So it was a nice time to bring awareness to the importance and things that students were doing in schools, but to give our district staff a chance to also play and tinker a little bit that week.
I think that's a remarkable suggestion, Leanna. I think sometimes our district personnel are a little bit out of the loop, as you were speaking and making that suggestion, Carly added in the chat that they start with teachers who are eager to learn. They get others excited, and then from there, we provide after-school PD on the tech tool that they're interested in as kind of a start-off point. Then they'll model a class lesson to help get their students started, and they'll provide follow-up support as needed. They also encourage teachers to put the tool in the students' hands and work together to solve problems as they arise. And actually, that would be great to do for the district folks too. Let them grapple with some of those challenges. So, and Leanna is right. Yes, they don't have to have all the answers, and Grant is right too. Lego Education Solutions are a great way to get started. So to give you something more, I am just putting into chat right now the link to the resource that Joshua showed you, and I will share my screen again so that people who join us can also, or join us from the future or from a recording, can also have access to this as well. So just a second as I pull this up. Oops. So again, if you're joining us from the future, here's the link that I put into the chat, that tinyurl.com/CS-A alignment 23, or you can use the QR code to get that direct link. Oh, and while I was pulling this up, Olivia, who is Carly's colleague, says that the two of them meet with every administrator during the summer to create goals regarding computer science, and then take that time to advocate for the teachers and what their needs are. That could be PD or some planning time or some resources. So you're right. I think it's not just the teachers who need support in developing goals for computer science, but also the site level administrators and those district level administrators. You guys are doing an awesome job out there. Okay, so we have just a couple of minutes left. This is a great time. If you have any questions for our panel, you're welcome to ask them. And as people are formulating their questions, I'll just advance the slide to another QR code, and this is for our customer success program. And so if you are, if you're not already a member of our success program, then we encourage you to join, because this is how you'll hear about upcoming webinars such as this one. This is where you'll get free resources, tools to support your implementation. Right now, when you sign up for Success, you'll get downloadable icon and word blocks to print and laminate, and that you can use in instruction as you're teaching your students some rudimentary coding. And let me pop in the link to join the Success program as well. And I don't see any additional questions coming up. I don't know if anybody wants to pop in and just kind of say what's on their mind.
Do we need to have an account to access Lego Education?
That's a great question. You do not. So you would just go to legoeducation.com, and all of our resources there are free for you to use. There's that little toggle on the upper right-hand corner that says Teach, and then that's where you could start looking at some of the lessons. As well, the alignment guide that we put in to the chat earlier, that has direct links to the lesson content. Additionally, if you join Success, it will show you how to get into our community. And actually here, this next slide will also get you there. And community.legoeducation.com also is all free resources. And there's going to be more than just the Lego Education lessons. There's going to be additional programs such as Build to Launch, which was created in collaboration with Csta, or Rebuild the World, or a number of other resources. So we invite you to definitely check that out. We have a lot of great information and content for you. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And if you sign up for that Success program, you're able to email us, email me, with any questions, with resources that you need. I also just put that webinar's link into the chat. And I want to give a very special note of gratitude to my colleagues and friends who have joined us today. Not only our panelists here, but we also had a number of folks in the audience as well. So we really appreciate you spending your time with us today, all of you. So thanks again. And yeah, take care.